Scrutiny Committee meeting on this day, the 20th of July 2025. Please be advised, everyone present, that this is a public meeting and it's been live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. I will start with declarations of interest.
Chairman, just for absolute transparency, the all-age autism strategy, I was chairman actually of the Health and Wellbeing Board when it was agreed then. Just so you're aware, and obviously I brought the topic form as well for it to come to this committee too. So thank you.
It's unusual to have a declaration of interest. I almost didn't notice you, so thank you for waving. Thank you.
Don't think it makes any monetary value out of it.
No.
Do you?
Let's go to item number 2, apologies for absence and substitutes.
We have apologies from Councillor Newstead, Councillor Tipple, Councillor Toval and Councillor Murrell.
Thank you very much. Minutes, item 3 of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 15th of July. Any comments, alterations required on them? We'll accept that they're true, accurate record. Everyone is nodding, so we move straight on then for the 2 chairman's announcements. The only thing I'm going to say is I think it's our first opportunity to congratulate Councillor Clancy. I believe he had a special event last week. Sorry you had to miss the council meeting because of that. I'm sure you probably had more fun than we did at the actual meeting, but congratulations. Yeah, it did come as a complete shock to Councillor Emsil Jonathan there, who, when I said, is Stuart, I said, is Stuart here? And he went, I said, he's got married today. He went, has he? And, so, I did joke that we'd all been invited to the reception and he hadn't, but congratulations. Public speaking. Public speaking, so we move straight on then to the Public Spaces Protection Order Vehicle Related ASB update.
Hello, good evening, back again. You've seen a lot of me just lately. This is the last time, hopefully, until next year now, I think. So yes, you'll recall that we made a Public Spaces Protection Order a year ago, no, just over a year ago, relating to vehicle-related antisocial behaviour and nuisance. And members were keen to have an update, an interim update after 12 months. I think really more for clarity, have we got the order and the regulations and the prohibitions correct? And actually, was it the right decision to make? Because, as I've said before, it's quite a draconian piece of legislation because it applies to absolutely everybody. So we do use these powers very sparingly and very wisely. I think you'll find from the report it has been incredibly successful piece of work. I will keep this brief because I kept the report brief, but just some highlights to say that during the year, the prior year, and I'm afraid I've only got joint South Norfolk and Broadland figures, the police at the time, because we didn't have an order, issued about 215 warning letters to motorists for... There's somebody at the door. For various vehicle-related nuisance and antisocial behaviour. And that's how we then stepped forward as a county to look at how do we deal with this on a county level, because every district was being affected. And quite simply, if we'd have placed an order, it would have moved it perhaps into South Norfolk, and then they place one and it will go into Broadland. So we tackled this on a county-wide project called Operation Octane. It's still in operation today, I'm pleased to say, and it's been nominated and shortlisted for a Tilly Award, a National Police Problem Solving Award. So we're quite proud of that piece of work. So moving forward, during April 24, when it became live, and December 2024, the District Council issued 3 warning letters only. So it's the first time that we were in that position. And the police didn't issue a single warning letter. They had no cause to. So you can see for yourself, going from 215, even if we had 50% of those, over 100, down to just 4 in that first part of the year. And then since 2025, we've received 1 complaint of a nuisance vehicle. It was actually a motorbike in this instance, pulling wheelies down Broadland Northway, straight past a police officer. So he was very clever. And it was a marked police officer, which is even cleverer still. So not only was he issued with a warning letter from us for breaching the PSPO, he received a Section 59 notice from the police. So if he comes to their attention again, the vehicle will be seized and crushed. And that's the kind of enforcement that we need. We do need that robust enforcement. Needless to say, we don't have any real hotspots now in our district. Rackheath was notorious, as Fran will account for. We haven't seen any of that activity in Rackheath. Tesco's haven't seen en masse car, what they call cruises, attending their car parks, because they did have an incident where they actually had to close a shop because they were fearful for people's safety in their car parks. So I think it's fair to say the PSPO has been incredibly effective. It continues to this date to be effective, with the exception of there's a bit of a problem brewing up at Gap on Broadland Business Park, which is a business, and Delta Fire. So I'm currently working with the Roads and Armed Policing Team, get their title right. We're not going out with guns to shoot them, but they've promised me a little bit of enforcement up there. And I'm working with the beat managers on that as well to try and identify exactly what the problem is, what's going on, and how do we ensure that we robustly enforce the PSPO to try to stop that and bring respite. It's predominantly the residents in Dussindale that are affected by noise, but that does and has reached as far as Little Plumstead on occasion. So yes, I'm working on that bit. That's me really finishing my update, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Has anybody got any question? Lacey.
Thank you. So is this dependent on the public notifying the police that there's an issue?
And the calls have actually come into both the police and to us as a district council. Oh, sorry. I am my worst own enemy, aren't I? Because I struggle with my hearing. So yes, so the police have had some calls in. We've had noise-related calls, but it's very difficult for us to enforce vehicle-related noise outside of the PSPO. So hence we're doing it as a multi-agency, because then we can tackle it from two directions.
And there's no reports on issues around Norwich Airport?
I had contact from Norwich Airport last year to say that there were some cars gathering at Petans and they were a security risk. And I said, if they're just parked there, that's not a breach of our PSPO. If they're a security risk to you as an airport, that's for you to deal with. And I had a discussion earlier this evening with my manager who said there are some high-powered vehicles gathering there. Again, if they're just gathering there, that is not an offence. We were quite strict on ensuring that we didn't stop people with performance vehicles being able to socialise. If they're racing on the road and speeding, that's a police matter first and foremost, because there is primary legislation to deal with that. We don't have pursuit vehicles, thankfully. So yes, I'm cited on it. I haven't had my police or partners come to me to say, is there something that we could do jointly? So I think that will be a roads policing matter.
Anybody else? Mark.
3.5, can we lose the N off of 2024? Just before we sign it off.
The pedantic award goes to you. Well done. But yes, it shouldn't be there. Can I raise, it's funny because the last parish council meeting I attended in Felthorpe, they had a parish councillor there reported an issue regarding speeding cars regularly on a Saturday night in a triangle of roads between Felthorpe and Attlebridge, which appears to be coming from an agricultural site or built agricultural buildings and they're modified. They'd contacted the police. They didn't want to phone 999, but they phoned 111 because they thought this isn't an emergency, it's not life-threatening. They got nowhere with the police. In fact, the police just rang off, basically. They were not interested. They tried the non-emergency number and the police said, well, there's not a lot we can do. I referred them to the time we passed the meeting, and said, go back. If they are having no luck with that, do I refer them to you?
Speeding is a difficult one because speeding is a road traffic offence. So first and foremost, you have to, if you're going forward with enforcement and prosecution, you would normally go to your primary legislation. So that would be for the police to enforce. Probably on a Saturday night, demand is high, the risks are higher elsewhere, and that's how they operate. If they've got registration vehicles, index numbers, because without them, I'm fighting in the dark, and they witness them doing something other than speeding. So if they're doing circuits and they've got really loud exhausts and they're deliberately over-revving the engine, causing the backfiring, you see them wheel spinning, donuts, sliding. I think it's not called sliding, it's called drifting. Sorry, I get the terminology right. If they can provide the registration numbers of those vehicles and they're prepared to say, I've seen them do it on this date and this time, then I can track down the registered keeper and send warning letters as a breach of the PSPO. Unfortunately, what I don't want to do is encourage them to put themselves into any danger, so videoing it, because it's obvious who they are, and I understand reticence, but we do need that information to be able to actually enforce this. I would suggest that they repeat those, not necessarily calling, do it online, because one, they don't get stuck in a long queue, and they can do it retrospectively because it will be recorded and it will become a dot on a map. And the more dots we get on a map saying this is a problem, the more likely it is it will get police attention when there is capacity to take that on. So I would say to them, don't be disheartened initially by not getting that police response, because they literally have to do everything on risk assessment. But we also work on intelligence, and that intelligence is repeated people calling in saying this is a problem, this is when it's happening, particularly when you get a time slot, because then we can encourage and work with the police to put on specific operations out there using our CP officers and myself if need be. So I would encourage them to continue reporting it, but online is so much quicker and easier.
I'm hoping that now they know that we've got this in place and that they can mention this to the police. And they only meet every other month, Felthorpe Parish Council, so I won't hear back from them for another 5 weeks or so, but hopefully it might improve. But it was certainly to do with modified loud vehicles that could be heard from some distance away, you know, the loud revving and all those associated things, which you notice out in the quieter areas of Felthorpe and Attlebridge, that sort of there's a triangle of roads out there, which they are very much treating as a circuit. So
Warning letters for people doing that elsewhere, and I just, as it popped into my head, if they want to, if they can give me an exact location, an area, the name of the roads, I could ask our CP officers to install some PSPO signage, which makes it easier for the police to enforce, because they can say there's a sign there, you know what you should or shouldn't be following, and people tend to notice new signs going up, and that may in itself help quieten the area, but at least it would enable the police to enforce should they turn up. So I'm quite happy to do that.
No, so I thought I might miss Peter. Katie, I know I'm guilty of that
it's good
sometimes.
news, so-
It's good news. Yeah, I mean, this seems very positive. It's clearly had an effect, and I think it's good that we've got a route. Even though I come to this with a complaint from Parish Council, but saying we actually had a route. They said to me, "What can we do?" And I said, "Well, this is in place. Try this now." And I think it's a really good attempt to solve something. And like you say, it's not too draconian. We're not stopping car clubs from meeting and those sorts of things. And you know, if people are meeting near the airport with their nice cars and just going along the northern bypass NDR without causing any problems, then what's to stop them doing that? Thank you very much. I'm just going to look back at the I believe the recommendation is just simply to note the contents of the report, and we've given you comments back. So we all agree that we've noted the report. Thank you very much indeed. You're welcome back before next year. You said we won't see you again for another year, but you're very welcome back.
I'll do my best. I'll find something.
Thank you. We move on to the Norfolk All-Age Autism Strategy for 2024-2029.
I feel like I need to confess about that. I stole a pen to highlight this from the police earlier and got caught in the act, so I'm just as bad as that lad in the car. Too bad. Yeah, I was. I know, terrible. Got really bad. So, This paper has come as a result of a topic form that was raised last year by Councillor Wymark, which asked us to take a look at the Norfolk All-Age Autism Strategy. Whilst there's been a delay, this is actually really timely. We're in the process at the moment of, we actually just started today actually in this very room, starting to review the health and wellbeing strategy for Broadland. So it comes perfectly for us to talk about it now. So I will confess that this isn't my area of expertise. I've learnt an awful lot about this over the last couple of weeks putting this together. So I'll endeavour to answer any questions and do the best job I can. You'll have all seen the slides, which really made up the bulk of the information that was sent out to you guys. IT means that we can't get it up on the screens, but I'm going to just pull out some highlights as we go through, if it's okay with everybody. You'll have noted the all age autism strategy is about every single person that lives in the county with autism of one degree or another, and how we are working to understand, accept and support them to live their a fulfilling life and do the best that we can for them. It was adopted by the Health and Wellbeing Board and Norfolk County Council last year, and we are a part of the Norfolk-wide Health and Wellbeing Board, which Councillor Wymark in fact chairs. So it all links together. It's part of the sort of stuff that we're involved with on a day-to-day basis. Thought it would be helpful just to think about kind of what we know about autism. I think we hear a lot about it, but what does it actually mean? The first legislation that was aimed at autistic people came into place in 2009, which is actually further away than I realised when I wrote this. So there's been lots of stuff in place for quite some time. There's some information here around Norfolk's population. I apologise that we didn't get any lower down in sort of getting the figures down for Broadland, but certainly the figure of 237 babies born each year in Norfolk just goes to show kind of how prevalent this issue is and will likely become. You can see a lot about increase in diagnosis and what have you, and we know that throughout this document there's a lot of speak about increasing the ability for people to become to get diagnosed and to get that verification of what's going on for them and then get the necessary support. Whilst that's not our bag to do that, it's really helpful to understand, I think, what some of our customers and residents are going through. There's some stuff in here about kind of what it means, and a lot of it is around communication, and there's stuff that we can think about as a council to help people to understand what we're trying to convey, and that applies to a whole host of things, not just autism. People who are visually impaired, audially have difficulty. There's all sorts of reasons, and autism is just one of them. And the final point, kind of around what is autism, it's important to know, and in terms of language, autism isn't an illness. It's something that people live with, and it can't be cured. We're here to support and do what we can for people that have, whether diagnosed or not. So the reason for bringing this topic here was to think about the timing and priority with other work when we're communicating with customers and such like, making sure that we've got the appropriate training for staff and for members where it's appropriate, and helping us to manage performance and such like with relation to this. As Fran wrote or Councillor Wymark wrote, within the topic paper, there is a growing awareness of autism, and it's right that we think about that. So the strategy itself breaks itself down into 6 priority areas, and within the presentation that you'll have read, I did note some bits at the bottom. I hope you got it with my notes at the bottom. No nods. No. Okay, great. Surprise. Got some notes. We can share it around. But within each of them, I just had to think about the stuff that we already do, because this isn't new to us. We deal with customers every single day, and every single customer is treated as an individual. So therefore, we already do quite a lot to adjust and to think about how we operate. So priority 1 is around improving and understanding the inclusion of autism. We have some training coming up for staff. Up to 76 members of staff will have access to that first tranche of training, which I think is in September. It's definitely after August, because otherwise we're not going to get anyone on it, because everyone's on holiday. But we also do stuff through our Health and Wellbeing Partnership, which is where we're hoping that you guys might, where you might choose to refer this to. Tots to Teens. This was really interesting to me, despite the fact that it's one of my services, to really have a look at this. Tots to Teens really serves the needs of autistic children very well. We have a lot of children come on the scheme across the summer and other holiday provision that we provide, and actually we're providing a lot of one-to-one support to children with autism, because actually I think we're quite unique in being able to offer that compared to other holiday activity providers, and I think there's more we can do with that. And all staff members are supported to meet their individual needs. In the same way that we apply to customers, we will treat every member of staff as an individual and work with them. When it comes to priority 2 and improving access to education and supporting transition to adulthood, this is an area where I think we've perhaps got less that we have an influence on, but again, we work with the customer to look at what their generalised needs are through the Help Hub, and of course we will direct them to the service relevant to that. Social prescribing would aim to support people holistically, and this would apply here. And also some work we do around community groups. It's really important to remember the money that you guys give out to community groups. There's no reason why that sort of stuff isn't relevant to and supporting people with autism, because anybody could live with autism and therefore can access all of these services. Things like access to EHCPs, which are education healthcare plans, it's a children's services thing. They're not the things that we can necessarily influence, but we can certainly direct customers and help them to access those. The priority 3 around supporting adults into employment, this is an area that we're branching out into more, and again we will treat each customer as an individual, but we are all about promoting employment opportunities, and again, whatever that might be for that particular customer, we will work with providers and employers to do that. So we also work alongside people like CTEC and DWP and Mind, and again they all provide stuff for them. You can ask me lots of questions, I'm just giving you some examples. So priority 4 is around tackling health inequalities. I think I've already been here and talked about health inequalities at some point recently. Having autism is absolutely a potential opportunity for someone to suffer with greater health inequalities, because they've perhaps got less access to information, less access to services, and again we're doing lots and lots of stuff to identify what we provide and who might face those inequalities and hopefully overcome those. It talks in the strategy around access to health and access to mental health services. We don't have huge amounts of influence over the fact that there's less GPs and it's harder to access mental health services. But what we absolutely can do and do every day is support customers to understand that process and get them to it. So it's loose, but we're doing it all the time. Priority 5 around building the right support in the community, early intervention, support for autistic people, social care services and housing and independent living. You guys will know there's loads of stuff there. We do our housing stuff all day, every day. It's our bread and butter. We are dedicated to creating sustainable communities. All of the stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis wildly fits into priority 5, and I think we've got some really good examples of what we're doing in that area. And then finally, it's a shame to end on this one because it's probably the one we've got least influence on, but it's around the criminal justice system for youths and for adults. We do have the police here in our Help Hub, and we do work with them every single day to support people. You may or may not be aware, but every morning we go through all the calls that come in for the last 24 hours, and one of the biggest priorities there is to identify anybody on that list who might be vulnerable, and of course autism might be one of the vulnerabilities that they experience, and we will put in support alongside that police response to any given situation. We know that statistically people with autism are more likely to be both victim and offender and something else within the criminal justice system, a witness. So there's loads of reasons why we would put in that additional support alongside our criminal justice colleagues. So in terms of the next steps, the strategy began in 2024. I met with the people whose job it is to implement that, and they were ridiculously positive that you guys were looking at this today, and were having a think about it. As you can imagine, that's all you want, isn't it, when you write a strategy, for people to actually be doing something with it. We will continue to do as much ongoing engagement as we can with people and families as part of our efforts to do more co-production and to work with our customers to develop things. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the health and wellbeing strategy is currently under review. I would suggest that within that strategy, it's important for us to think about not only people with autism, but all forms of neurodiversity. And I would perhaps take this moment to encourage a wider look at neurodiversity, not just the autism stuff. And that we will commence training soon. October, it's in October. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a rundown as to what the strategy is, what we're already doing. I'm pleased to report that we haven't just decided to start working on this because a strategy came up last year, but for you guys to think about and how you want to move forward and to question me.
Thank you. I've already had some people waving at me. I'm just going to ask Fran, since he brought this up, if he wants first go on this, and then I'll go to Caroline.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and thanks very much. I mean, you've obviously done a lot of reading. No, you really have, and I really say thank you for that. I think this is a really important strategy to bring forward, because we all deal with autistic people. We all deal with people who are neurodivergent, both as members and as officers, and that's the reason I brought it forward, and that's on the topic form, I think, there, because the interactions we have on a day-to-day basis, an hourly basis, dare I say, within the office here, understanding autism and actually having a positive conversation can make a massive difference. If you don't understand it, you can't converse in, dare I say, in the right way. I mean, you may not know someone at the other end of the phone is autistic. However, you can certainly frame the way you speak in a way so that people can understand whoever they might be. So, you know, dare I say, an autistic approach is probably an approach for anybody that they can access. So I think that's really, really important. I mean, obviously you touched upon diagnosis. Diagnosis is taking exceptionally long periods of time. I think up to about 7 years. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. Some young children in school won't be diagnosed until they leave school because it takes such a long period of time. That doesn't mean they don't need support, because they've still got autism, whether they've got a diagnosis or not. And I think this is the part of this strategy, is recognising that that support can still be given, must still be given, and I think it's really important. I mean, you touched upon the criminal justice system as well, totally overrepresented by people who are neurodivergent, and I think it's an area we really need to address, you know, as a society, really. I know that's beyond our remit here at District, absolutely. But, I mean, going back to Health and Wellbeing Partnership, I think it's really important, and I know the work that's done within that partnership is really, really important there. And obviously the Chair sits on the Health and Wellbeing Board and would be fully conversant with this report, having sat in there and voted for it, I believe. I can't remember if they were in there in the day, but they probably would have done. So all in all, I'm really, really pleased. I just think, you know, we often talk about health inequality, and this is a health inequality where we have within our gift to make a difference, both as I say, for our residents, but also our staff as well. And I think that's really, really important. So it's multifaceted for me. But thank you. Thank you, Jim.
You sort of stole my thunder a bit there. I was going to say I really welcome the report, and I know through my own work with SEN families how long it takes to get a child diagnosed with autism, as you said, many years, and also even getting the education and healthcare plans sorted. So anything to help towards that, I really welcome. So thank you. Thank you, Fran.
I was at a training course many years ago where an actor played the part of someone with autism, and my first mistake was inviting them to take a chair, which they duly went and took the chair. So yeah, I mean, language is an important thing. I've got 2 grandchildren, both at complete opposite end of the autistic spectrum, so I've got some kind of first-hand experience. And one of the frustrating things for many people is the lack of resource and money that's funded into it. So I see that, you know, without that strategy going forward, it's going to be very difficult to argue the case. Which leads me to ask the question of the statutory bodies that were involved in this, which is sort of Health and DWP, Department of Justice. Are they all subscribing to the same strategy?
Hi, thank you. So you'll know better than I, but it was endorsed at the Health and Wellbeing Board for Norfolk, and those organisations make up that board. The purpose of today is really just for members to say that they endorse it going into our localised strategy, which again contains all of those partners, and they will be actively engaged in it. So the short answer is yes, because they're part of that wider piece of work. I'm absolutely certain for those people whose job it is to really make this happen, every single day they'll be looking at each of these different priorities and thinking, who do we need to engage at each stage? And I would envisage that within, if we were to make reference to this within the health and wellbeing strategy for Broadland, it would be about it being an overarching thing to consider, and potentially some more specific work as and when necessary, and we would pull in the appropriate people to do so. I think we'd be really mindful within the Broadland strategy about what we had influence over within our boundary. You know, a conversation around the wider criminal justice system is better had at a county-wide and if not national level, but certainly around community support and how we deal with customers can absolutely be more heavily led on a local footprint. I hope that answers.
Yeah, just one quick follow-up, second point in pedantry. On page 27, paragraph 3, it reads, nor can expect people. I think there's either missing words or there's words that shouldn't be there.
So, as part of this, how do you look at doing outreach to families with autistic children to let them know that you have services available to them?
So in my mind, the Health and Wellbeing Partnership, it's not just my mind, it's what we've agreed. Within the Health and Wellbeing Partnership, that's the strategic oversight for how we work across Broadland. The delivery arm of that is largely the Help Hub. And we will go out to any person that needs support through the Help Hub, and we will look at their individual needs and help them to access them. So we will largely continue doing what we're doing, which is an individual approach to each customer or family as necessary. And we would look at whatever their needs are and help them to access those support mechanisms. The chances of us as a council delivering services that are specific to autistic people, I'd say are fairly slim. That's not in our gift to do, that's the responsibility of others. But what we absolutely can do through our community connectors or whatever other service it might be is help people to access those and to navigate the system as best possible, and also to make sure that as a council we're doing the best we can to find the right communication techniques to work with that family. So I would absolutely love to see all of my frontline workers on this training in October for that very reason, so that we can provide the best service we can within what we're able to offer.
Can I just make one little suggestion then? Help Hub literature. If you send it to the special, so I've got a 16-year-old just finished high school. He's now going to stay on, but we've never heard of any kind of help from that side of things. If the Help Hub was to send things to the specialist schools so they're aware that you offer services, just so families that don't have the time to look in the same way, because I've got another one who's a bit more broken, and because of that you kind of lose sight of other things you need to be looking for at the same time. But if you had a bit coming back from the school saying, look, this is what we can offer, this is where we can help, but actually there's only so much we can do, but we can point you in the right direction. I think for some families that feel lost, that would be a great help.
That is so incredibly well timed, because whilst it's not what I'm here to talk about, we've just put someone in post who's going to be making contact with people that are absent. I think I talked about young people before, perhaps. We can absolutely think about that as something that she could be working on, so I will take it back immediately. Because always with the hub, what we're thinking about is we're always open to everyone, and if you come to us and you say you need help, then of course. But how can we target our support at those that need it most, and actually those with communication needs in terms of all forms of potential neurodiversity, we could target, and doing it through that youth project would be ideal. So awesome, thank you.
Just got a bit of a query. The statistics you quoted about there being 237 autistic babies born in Norfolk each year, the maths doesn't seem good, because that would, if there's 27,400 autistic people living in Norfolk, that would require 120 years worth of 237 children to be born to get to that figure of 27,400.
and I will raise it with the people that wrote those statistics, because I 100% stole that from somewhere else. So I will find out. But I mean, I don't know how they came to that figure, but I'll find out and look into it for you, because you're right, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, no, I've got theories, but I shan't go into them. But yeah, of course. Yeah, lots of people have moved here. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, because just my experience, not just as a teacher, but thinking friends, family. I've got autistic members of my family, and lots of our friends, and I'm thinking about their children, and the statistics would be, as a ratio, much higher. You know, I'm thinking of figures from just friends and family, well over 10% of children, 10-15% possibly having, you know, that or showing traits. Perhaps some undiagnosed, but mostly diagnosed. So, you know, that seems wrong. But also it shows, in my experience, the prevalence of autism and background levels of understanding of people not perhaps having the diagnosis, but that, as I've made note here about what I think clarity and consistency is what autistic people need. And I think the fact that we've got a county strategy, which means that it's being spoken of and dealt with in the same ways, doesn't matter where you move in Norfolk, is really important, because autistic people need to know where they stand. They want that absolute consistency. They want to know that things are the same. As soon as you change something, even if you're changing something for something almost the same, autistic people see that as 100% change, and it can completely throw them. And, you know, I know I deal with children at school who are autistic, and they find just one small change in a day can really, really upset them. So I really welcome this whole strategy, and it speaks of the needs that are clear to everybody who's got either someone in their family or a friend who's autistic. Jonathan, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I've noticed through work that, obviously I work for the Matthew Project, who deals with people with drug and alcohol issues, that quite a few of the people, obviously with the criminal justice side as well, where obviously they are dealing with people who are coming out of the prisons, as it were, but also the general amount of people we talk to with complex issues in looking after themselves. The amount of people I have noticed who are obviously contacting Broadland, obviously we know that the county is more of the health side of things, but there is a high percentage of people contacting obviously about housing. And I think that is something where we do have to be aware of that. I know it says obviously supporting the release of prison thing, but there is that situation where I know our housing team are very good, but that complex issues, and I have heard many different sort of times where they've sort of said, I've been talking to housing and I don't quite know what they mean, if you know what I mean. And that can be a range of different reasons why they don't know that, but we've got to bear that in mind, that in those situations, most of them that are working with the Matthew Project to try and get themselves back on their feet are also then looking to be housed in some way as well. So there is that feeling that there will always be that contact with Broadland.
What I failed miserably to mention in that priority 6 is that we do have people within our housing team that are specifically allocated to supporting people coming out of the criminal justice system. So again, they'd be key people to come on that new training, especially. And I apologise for completely forgetting to mention that, but in that priority 6 around the criminal justice system, we do have a huge role to play, because we know that people without housing are far more likely to go back into that system.
Sorry, can I? On a positive side, the amount of times I've heard someone say, and they spoke to Broadland and they've been sorted out and they're all happy, the amount of times I've heard that has been really, really positive. And obviously you do hear about talking to other councils that maybe don't, but when they're talking to Broadland, I can think of like sort of 6 in the last sort of half a year where they've had dealings with Broadland and they've been it's been extremely positive for them.
Thank you. I think we'll move to the recommendation then. And it says here to receive the report and consider whether it wishes to recommend to Norfolk all age autism strategy to be incorporated within the Broadland Health and Wellbeing Strategy. I hope you'll also just with that perhaps note the comment, particularly about where we go next, and feed that into the right people as well. I know you will. You've listened to us really carefully, so thank you for that. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you very much indeed. Okay. He's been waiting all year there for this. It's the review of the Food Innovation
No
Centre.
comment. I hold my fire, but not for long.
It's the,
I do have a few questions.
yeah, I thought you would.
But I'll let the others have their questions first.
Thank you. I'll hand over to you.
Good evening. The report in front of you is the end of financial year update for the Broadland Food Innovation Centre. This is the second full year of operation, and it highlights the financial situation for the end of last year and the projections for this year as well. It's important to note that this is an innovation centre. It's designed to be for start-up businesses, to support them and let them grow. A couple of key things have happened this year. We've had some of our businesses experience substantial growth. They've taken on additional units, they've taken on new contracts, new business. They've been working with the wider business support programme to be able to grow, which is obviously the positive side of this and what we were hoping for. On the flip side, unfortunately, there have been two businesses which have gone out of business. So those units have become vacant again. It wasn't unexpected. We continue to support them, we work with them as much as possible, but unfortunately some do fail to thrive. The position for the centre is exactly as projected. We are doing where we expected to be. By the end of year 3, we were expecting to have enough occupancy to break even in terms of the running costs. The management of the centre is through Hethel. We're now into the 3rd year of that contract. That will end next June. So that is a continued level of support which has been going on for the whole duration of the project so far. I think I will leave it there, but I'm obviously happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Has anybody got anything they'd like to ask? Shane.
Just one question really for clarification. There seems to be quite a wide difference on the fees and charges for 25 and the end of 26. Can you elaborate on that? Why is it so much of a disparity?
So the fees and charges are the income from service charge. The service charge for the centre was set exceptionally low initially. It was set at £1.10 per square foot, which was well below the market rate. That was to encourage the businesses into the centre to be able to take on this space. It was always projected that that would slowly increase to bring it in line with the actual costs of running the centre.
So does this mean that by next year it will be in line with cost, yeah?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned Hethel Innovation Limited, and obviously you say we're into the 3rd year. Are we looking to re-procure that? Or, you know, maybe not them, obviously, but put it out to procurement? I just wondered where we were, because obviously we, you know, well, it seems a long way away, a year, but it really isn't in the world of procurement anyway. Thank you.
Yes, we're starting to consider what the options look like. We've got until the end of June next year to implement a replacement solution, if indeed there is a replacement solution or a continuation. That may involve a procurement exercise or it may not. All options are on the table for discussion at the minute.
The contract does allow for an extension of +1 and +1. So if it is viewed that it would be worthwhile for us to retain that contract for up to 2 more years, there is an option for us to do so.
So when will that decision be made? Whether we're going out to re-procurement or we're going to take the option? I mean, just timescale, so, you know, so I have an idea where we might be. Thank you.
To be confirmed. Certainly this calendar year, but we're exploring the options currently. That exploration will confirm the timeline for re-procurement and or other options.
I'll take Stuart then Tony.
Thank you, Chair. Can you tell us, I mean, obviously the contracted services and service level agreement, I presume that's Hethel's role in the centre. Tell us a little bit more about what they actually do for that money, please.
So without breaking any commercial confidence, they operate and manage the centre for us as they have done as a partner, a paid partner since the very beginning. So it's part of their innovation network and their cluster of centre management functions. But also as part of that we've continued with the innovation support. The original project was the building. It was a cluster support and there was innovation support. That element of the project has continued post ERDF funding. That's about exploring the next opportunities for the food industry. It's about supporting particularly tenants in explorations of growth and accelerating their business growth. It's about supporting explorations into new markets and considering new technologies in the food industry. But the core function is the centre management. So there's a number of people that look after the centre for us, and they do a whole range of things, whether it's from building management, tenant liaison, etc., etc.
Yeah, can I come back on that? I mean, I think, yeah, I can see that it'd be nice if you could give some actual examples, because to me, for the size of the turnover of the organisation and bearing in mind other things like grounds maintenance contracts, other maintenance costs, etc., seems a heck of a lot of money. I mean, the innovation side, again, I'm going to declare perhaps or at this minute, I sit on the Norfolk County Council Arms Length Company working group, so I'd just like that recorded so I know a little bit about what Hethel do and what Hethel don't do. So I think it's fair to say that. But I think, to me, when you look to procure the new management agreement, the new contract agreement, I mean, I would be looking, and again, I'd like this minuted, I'd be looking to probably bring that in-house, because how many units is there altogether? 13? 13? Yeah. So we're paying £243,556 effectively to provide, inverted commas, innovation services and management services for 13 units. That's expensive, Chairman. I'd like that recorded. That's very expensive. And I think we need to be looking at saving a considerable amount of money on that. That's just unbelievable, Chairman.
We undertook a procurement exercise to secure a management function and a continued innovation function. That was an open market exercise that was conducted some 2 years ago now. That was the best the market could provide for what is a fairly unique building in Norfolk and a service provision which doesn't exist in the context of Norfolk, or didn't exist until Broadland took the step to have the Food Innovation Centre. That does mean that there are some additional costs attached to that service, but I would contest that it represents good value for money. As I've said in my earlier answer, we're looking at all options for the future of the centre, and that will need to reflect the operational income, the evolving needs of the tenant, and also changes with other service provisions in terms of cluster growth, the wider innovation support network, etc., etc.
I'd like it minuted that I would contest that represents very poor value for money.
Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that we've got for 24-25 expenditure, we spent 12,200 on advertising, and then now have penciled in 15,000 for the current year. Is there any way that you could quantify if we've received any direct benefit from the advertising we did last year, in any way, shape or form, please?
So those advertising costs include commission paid to the letting agent for getting additional tenants in. So it's not just purely the website and the marketing of the centre. It's also for bringing tenants into the centre itself.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I do have the concern with regarding how much obviously the contracted services do cost us. But obviously that has now been discussed. My other concern is regarding the building maintenance, the grounds maintenance and the contract cleaning, because all those figures seems to have jumped quite. Building maintenance, for instance, is the fact that the building is only a year old. I'm a bit concerned that, well, not a year old, but it's been that's not that old, where I get the sort of 300 quid in the first year or whatever, but then to go up to 10,000, that seems to be quite a lot of flaws in the building if you've got that much of a maintenance cost, you know, to do it. And that sort of seems to have jumped quite a lot. Obviously, the grounds maintenance, the grounds will have been the same in 2023, 24 as in 24, 25, but that's like an extra £5,000. So I'm not quite sure how that sort of happened. And the same with the cleaning. What they were cleaning in 23, 24 will be exactly the same in 24, 25. So I would be looking at that sort of saying, well, you know, what's the jump? Is it that because there's more units being used, therefore there's more cleaning, but surely it wouldn't be us going around and cleaning the individual units, or how does that work? Because obviously that should come in their service charge. What we charge them should cover how much it's costing us to do the cleaning, as opposed to it sort of jumping and like that. But just to keep an eye on those sort of figures. But I don't know if there's anything you know about them.
So I'll start from the bottom for you. The cleaning contract, the service this year has been included in the council-wide procurement. So when we went out to procurement for all the different services, the Broadland Food Innovation was included within that. And that cleaning contract will be coming on board in August, and that cost reflects the cost for this year. The grounds maintenance was only procured midway through the year. We now have two different contracts. We have grounds maintenance and we have winterisation. So from the perspective of health and safety, we need to make sure that the roads on site are gritted, for example, over the winter. In terms of the building maintenance, yes, there have been additional costs, and that they will continue to be additional costs for the building, even though it is relatively new. As the site has settled and as new tenants have moved in, where work has needed to be done on site, that cost does incur. But all of those things, you are right, do come under the service charge, so would be recouped by the increase in service charge from the tenants.
Can I just ask that a gritting fee? I know I go out and grit outside our school on days. Some years I'm out there quite a lot. This year I think I gritted twice. We didn't, you know, there's hardly any days where in the morning it was even icy. You know, you don't want people sliding across the playground, so we do that. But so I'm thinking, are we paying a set fee on the basis of that, or are we paying them just when they do it? Because if so, this year should have been quite low.
So yes, the contracted fee that's in there for this year is the total estimated budget. If we do not need to call of them, that by the end of the year would be less. But at the moment we have to predict that it could be a harsh winter, for example. But it is only on a per visit cost.
Peter,
Am I the last?
I think so.
Firstly, the question. The break-even point is 60%, correct? What is it actually at the moment? What is the occupancy in percentage terms?
So the break-even point at 60% was in the original business case. The current occupancy is 75-ish%.
Is 9 out of 13 units. No, 10 out of 13 units.
10 out of 13.
Three vacant.
Curiously then, if the occupancy is higher than the break-even point, we seem to actually be receiving far less income than we budgeted for, which of course is due to at least two businesses going out of business. So what are we doing to actually address the vacancies that we have? Can they have a detailed breakdown of what is actually happening? Because obviously we are substantially under budget in terms of the income that we were projecting, such that we've actually had to call on reserves to actually balance the books, which is obviously a totally untenable situation. So let me have a detailed understanding of exactly what we're doing to address this difficulty.
Thank you for the question. So the budget that we set last year was based on, and we brought a paper to you in last July, which said that we either had heads of terms or occupancy on all 13 units. That situation's changed, and here today we've got 10 of the 13 units occupied, with heads of terms for the 11th, leaving 2 vacancies. So the figures presented last year were based on 100% occupancy, and Deborah set out some of the challenges that some of those businesses have faced, but also some of the real success stories that we're seeing from some of those emerging food production companies. We have more maturity in the centre in its management, and those businesses have more maturity as well. And as Deborah has described, some of those businesses have taken on additional units, giving us more certainty about their ability to repay and a cause for celebration for some of that development. We recognise we've not been as successful as we'd hoped to be in securing occupancy for those units that have either become vacant or where heads of terms have fallen away, and we've switched supplier in order to secure additional tenants. We're now working with Hethel to provide occupancy rather than a third party where we were doing previously. We've also relaunched the website to celebrate the centre as its current function, moving on from the original project, and that better reflects the services and options that we offer. We're also expanded into virtual tenancy to encourage occupancy, throughput and engagement with different tenants who are both in person and virtual. We work closely with the Taste Buds Collective, which is the cluster formation that grew out of the original project and rebranded this year. That's looked after by the University of East Anglia and is now a fee-paying food cluster. They host some events. Some training events are planned at the Food Innovation Centre as well. And of course, we're promoting things like the test kitchen, which has seen good occupancy this year from, again, new businesses that might ultimately become tenants of ours. This year, we've also completed, or about to complete, a media kitchen to encourage people to come along to the centre and use that for their promotional material. And we wait to see the success of that. So there's a whole host of things. The assumptions that were made last year were reasonable based on the information that we had. We probably could have had less confidence in those assumptions, and that possibly could have been communicated more clearly, and for that I take responsibility. But the maturity that the tenants have shown over the last 12 months gives us certainty over the figures that are being proposed, particularly the income and service charge figures that are being proposed. But yes, I hope that goes some way to answering your question.
So are you confident that that shortfall can be made up within a reasonable period of time, and what would you call a reasonable period of time?
So I think the original business case set out that the centre would be cost neutral within 5 years of operation. You'll see from 3.5, we're proposing a small surplus this year, assuming things continue as we have expected. Those welcome rates that businesses received when they first joined the centre have gone. Service charges increased to go some way to meet some of the operational costs. We're proposing a surplus at the start of the financial year. These budgets were set many months ago of £20,767. If we get close to that, I think that will have been really successful. But as I say, the original business case set out a 5-year period. That reserve for the centre can only be used for the centre. It cannot be used for anything else other than for the provision of things like innovation support, reinvesting in the centre, improvement, etc., etc. There's £135,000 left in that reserve, and we're expecting to, as I say, make a small contribution to that reserve again this year. I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Can you do more than that? I'm teasing you. Okay, moving now to another detailed question. Supplies, materials, including postage. Apparently we spent 53,000, 24-25, and we're budgeting for 6,750. Can you explain that huge variation, please?
The 53,000 last year, a large part of it was an unexpected cost that was a carryover from the ERDF project. So from the European Regional Development Fund project, so the year previous. So there was an invoice that came in exceptionally late that was unexpected. That project is now completely closed. Everything has been shut down from the European funding side of things.
Finally, Chairman, can I ask that we have this matter brought back to us again within a timescale, because clearly there are issues that we want to understand that progress has been made in the right direction and we are achieving what we set out to achieve. And obviously, this is a step in the right direction, I hope. I'd like to see in, say, 6 months to a year's time, a further progress report so that we can actually see that the progress is being made along the lines that we want.
Just debate with Sinead about whether we'd have anything different from what we'd seen in 6 months' time, because this is very much an annual thing. But certainly, I think next year, definitely.
Right. I'll accept annually.
Okay, that sounds right. Is that? I'll give you a chance to come back on that, George.
Annually sounds great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The assumptions that you've used for the 25-26 budget, you may well have actually mentioned it earlier. Well, apologies in advance if you did, but I've missed it. What have you assumed for your occupancy rate to arrive at those assumptions?
That's at 60%, so it's based on the fact that we've got 3 units vacant at the moment, and obviously we don't know what's going to happen this year. So it is, I would like to say, a conservative estimate based on the total occupancy.
I was just going to say, although there has been a lot of questioning regarding your 23, 24, 24, 25 figures, this is amazingly good. We have got the help for businesses here, where we've got 10 businesses in there. Let's not forget that. I know there's lots of questions regarding the figures and everything like that, but the actual bottom line that we've got 10 of our local businesses having the help and support, and the being there, which is the Food Innovation Centre, which is what we always said it was about. I think we have to be very aware of that. But my feeling of this is, bearing in mind that for work, I work for 2 charities doing build and maintenance, well, sort of for both of them. And what I've realised is that everybody is trying to rip you off. In other words, even a charity, for instance, where you say we need some minor electrical work done, and the quotes that were coming in were like as though they were not wanting the work. And so, yeah, it is very difficult. And I think that is the thing. I think the overall success is there, but it's just the actual costs of everything that's the problem. And I think that's what everybody around the table is highlighting, that if it wasn't for those massively high costs, that would be even better. And I think that's what we've got to look at, that the actual success is there, but let's look at how we can stop people ripping us off, as it were. Well, not ripping, but, you know, charging through the earth.
We've, as Deborah set out, we've undertaken a number of procurement exercises to secure contracts of a certain value. We must test the market, and the market will tell us what they're able to provide. If I can provide some reassurance, some of those costs are due to changes in health and safety legislation, or some costs have been incurred where the designs don't quite meet our expectations or residents' expectations in the operation of the building, and that we don't expect those costs to occur again, whether that's around pest avoidance or fire safety measures. And of course, our centre managers are experienced in managing centres, and we have a team of experienced people back at the council as well who can double check those costs are appropriate and apportionate, and we do those things.
Stuart, new signal.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I would just like to highlight, I think I concur with what Jonathan says. We've got some businesses in there, some innovation going on, and some start, which is an excellent thing. But I would also like to highlight categorically and clearly the operational costs are far, far too high. Whatever procurement exercise you're entering into, you need to be harder and more robust in your procurement, because these costs, for the level of income you've got coming in, for the occupancy levels you've got, are horrendously high. And every effort needs to be made, could we have it minuted please, to absolutely reduce these costs, to provide the same level of service, the same level of support, the same floor area, but dramatically reduce their costs. If you want, I'm happy to help you.
I think they've already minuted your concerns earlier on from the meeting on that.
and supply, and I'd be happy to help.
I think I'll just, I'll let Mark come in first, sorry.
It's just a very quick one, just so I can get a better understanding of the actual final figures. What is the actual square meterage that we've got rentable, and then our current price per square metre rental income, please?
While Deborah finds the exact square meterage, because I can't recall it, of course, the charges we make to individual tenants depends on the size of the unit and also the commercial negotiations that we've concluded with each tenant. So it does vary from tenant to tenant. What I can say is the service charge is now consistent across all of those tenants. We increased that earlier this year. Deborah?
36,396.2 square foot.
But
no, that's how many square foot we've got across 13 units in total.
As a total occupancy, what is our total potential income from that if we were fully tenanted?
Brought open the service charge calculator.
It's difficult to give you a definitive answer because, as I said before, we've reached different commercial negotiations with different tenants. Some of those will have income that's accrued later on in the period rather than earlier on. So it's difficult to give a set value. We'll crunch some numbers and give you a range of full occupancy.
Yes.
We're in danger of just drifting around here, but if you've got any figures that you can give directly back, yeah. So, can I just say?
Sorry, what was that?
I think. Clearly, the numbers, although there are some costs, the numbers are going in the right direction. The fact that the tenancy is at what it is a positive sign. Of course, the danger of such a project is that you can also be a victim of your own success, because of course if a business is particularly successful, they then move out the innovation centre, set up somewhere else, and suddenly you've got a vacancy. So you can end up, as it were, the more successful you are, the faster turnover you get of businesses, and the more often you're looking for people. I wonder whether we make enough of this in the Broadland newsletter thing that we send out to houses, or whether it's written up in such a way that people know about it. Because I know somebody who is into his business deals with social media websites, search engine optimization, all that stuff, who's actually doing some work for a company who are based there, who didn't know anything about it himself until he visited that, yet he runs a business himself in Broadland. Now, obviously, he's not into food, other than eating it and drinking some of the products that they make there, but I'm wondering whether we really show this off or use the Broadland News as an opportunity to actually say, have you got a business, do you want a leg up? This could be the ideal thing for you. Because when we're talking about how much we're spending on advertising to get tenants in, we're sending something out, a coloured newsletter out to homes 3 times a year or twice a year. It seems like a good opportunity to also to show off about something positive that Broadland's doing to stimulate the economy and businesses. So that's from my 2 pence. There was someone over here who's indicating they want to speak again. Jonathan.
I was just going to say, when we were talking about office space being used by small businesses regarding getting little tech companies and everything, so I always said that we should help them, but say, look, we'll help you, but we'll take 5%, do a deal where we get 5%. Obviously, when we're talking about these companies, if we help them and then they become the next global thing, if we've taken a 5% cut, we're laughing. And I think that would be something which these companies are looking for a leg up. But if we were then doing a little bit of a deal like a Dragon's Den type thing, we'd have that as a plus as well. As they then spiral out of all control and go to be the next big thing, we've got a percentage cut of that. But no, just an idea.
Just having a look at the higher charges for any business that can use them. Do we have a different cost price for, we know the businesses in there are the innovators at the minute. So in my head, I think you'd reduce the price for them if they wanted the test kitchen or, you know, the sensory test spaces or even the social media spaces. But then if you've got Broadland businesses who aren't in there, who are quite successful on their own, do we charge more for those businesses?
It's just set at a fixed fee at the moment. The only exception to that is virtual tenancies. Within the virtual tenancy, there is an allowance for 5 hours of use of space within the centre included within that. But apart from that, whether you are based within the centre or just a Broadland business, it is a fixed rate at the moment.
Thank you. I think we've had a good discussion about that. Peter seems satisfied at least with what we've said.
Ecstatic.
Ecstatic. We note the recommendation. All those in favour of note it. Well, we all note the recommendations, but let's all acknowledge that we note the recommendation, which we've already asked for to be put in. And thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We then go all the way to Sinead for the work programme.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So you'll see for the September meeting we have 4 items. Just to draw your attention, for the December, January and March meetings we currently have no items on the agenda. So if just any members would like to review the topic form, if there's any area that the committee would like to review, then please do let me know and submit a topic form for those meetings.
Of course, that includes the fact we still have the pre-cabinet ONS as well. We're not the cabinet are still making decisions. Fran.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously we mentioned earlier about the Health and Wellbeing Partnership. Would it be good to have an update from them? We've had that in the past, just telling us what they were doing and the projects and the success rate, etc. So I just wondered if something like that might be a useful topic for us to see. I know it's working with a number of different agencies, but nonetheless we're front and centre chairing it. So I just wondered if that might be something that would be useful for the council and the councillors to understand more. Really, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Weinmark. If you're able to just put a topic form in, just so we're clear on the outcomes the committee are trying to achieve, just because when we go to the relevant officers to invite them along to speak, we just want to make sure they're clear on the purpose of them being here, so they bring in the right information for you as a committee to review, if that's okay. I'm happy to work with you on that.
Okay.
With the exciting news that we may not have enough topics to discuss at a meeting. I did see a few smiles on people's faces when that was said, but thank you very much. We'll close the meeting at 7:42. Thank you.